Everything in life is negotiable. Everything is changeable. And realizing this is the first step in getting what you want and achieving your goals. Why? Coming up. Hey, welcome. I'm Andres, and this is Life Frameworks, where I share with you the tools that you need to kick ass at life. Some years ago, when I was traveling in Egypt with my family, I made an observation that many years later I realized was very important for how to approach relationships and how to get what I want. When you're walking around a tourist attraction in Egypt, there are hundreds of street vendors that approach you and are trying to sell to you souvenirs and trinkets such as pens and bracelets. And some of these souvenirs are quite cool. And when they come to you and you ask them, okay, what is your price? They'll start with a very outrageous number. So for a small plastic pen, they'll say, oh, it's like $50 or $100. These prices are outrageous, but then if you start to negotiate even just a little bit, they'll immediately drop down their price by half or even 1/10 of the original price. So one day I was walking around in the pyramids with my parents and saw this street vendor selling a really cool golden pen that had a sphinx in it. And I was 9 years old at the time and I thought it was the coolest pen ever and visualized myself doing tests and showing off to all my friends back home this awesome pen that I had bought in Egypt. And then I went to my dad and I said, hey, can you buy me this pen? And my dad said, look, you can buy it, but you actually have to approach the vendor and negotiate the sale yourself. I was 9 years old at the time, so the task of negotiating with a street vendor that didn't speak English really well and started at outrageous prices seemed really daunting. But as soon as I approached and the guy realized that I was not going to take the first price, he immediately halved the price and then halved again and then halved again. And after, a tough negotiation by a 9-year-old boy, I could bring down the price from $50 to $5. I paid 1/10 of the original starting price. And I was feeling awesome with myself for bringing down the price from 50 to 5 and buying a pen that I thought was going to make me my school's chick magnet when I realized that an adult American couple wanted to buy the same pen. So I overheard them talking about how they thought it was a really cool pen and they wanted to buy it for their daughter back home. So they approached the vendor and they said, hey, we want to buy this pen. And then the vendor immediately said, it's $50. And, I thought, okay, the guy's going to negotiate down. But what happened after was really curious to me. So the guy looked back at his wife and they kind of pondered a little bit, made some weird faces. And then the guy turned back and gave the dude $50 and got the pen. And I was just in shock. I was just a 9-year-old boy that had just negotiated the price from 50 to 5, and this guy had just paid 50 for the exact same pen. At that time I thought, okay, like maybe the guy is just super rich or he's trying to help the vendor out, and that's why he paid the full price. But then, sometime after, when I go to a hotel and we were having dinner, the same couple was sitting right next to us at dinner. And for 30 minutes, the guy was complaining to his wife how everything in Egypt was so expensive and he couldn't believe that like a small plastic pen was worth $50. And while he was doing that, I was thinking to myself, the price was actually not $50. I just paid $5 for the exact same pen. And then it hit me. The guy never even thought about negotiating. In his mindset, whatever the first price the other person said was the price that he was going to take, and there was not moving or negotiating around. He was just going to take it. And for this reason, he ended up paying 10 times the price that a 9-year-old boy paid for the exact same item. And the dude probably spent a lot of money going to Egypt, bringing his wife along and seeing like awesome historical monuments. But there he was, many hours later, just complaining about something that he could have completely changed if he had negotiated back. And many years later, when I was looking back at that incident, I realized that the guy, it's not that he didn't know how to negotiate, it was he never even thought about negotiating. In his mind, the price was fixed and that's what he needed to roll with, and there was no opportunity to budge or change. And as a consequence for doing that, he got a very crappy deal in return, and he was mad for a very long time. And when I moved to America, I realized that I started to approach life in a very similar way. In many developed countries, things are so systematized and work so well, we don't see that like underlying any economic exchange or any situation where there are two or more people interacting with each other, everything is negotiable. So when people travel abroad and they're put in a situation in which like things can negotiate and someone's trying to better a deal, they don't even think about negotiating. So when that mindset creeped up on me and I adopted it as a default mindset, I started to get some really crappy deals. In my personal and romantic relationships, I actually ended up in situations that I didn't want to be in just because I didn't question and negotiate for the things that I wanted. In my professional situation, I did not have a great salary. And when this started to happen, I remember the story that I just told you, and it suddenly hit me. Everything, absolutely everything is negotiable. It doesn't matter that things look like they're set in stone. If there are two people trying to do some sort of transaction with each other, there's going to be room to negotiate. And then I started to adapt that as my default mindset. I started to negotiate absolutely everything. And when I started a business, that was very helpful. And now looking back on my first years when I started that business, I got some outrageous deals that I have no idea how I got. But it was the same principle that happened in Egypt, right? Like, people would start with a certain price, and as soon as I showed a willingness to negotiate, they would really quickly bring it down. And then if you persisted and continued, you could get some really nice deals just if you had the mindset to question the status quo and negotiate to change it. And the more and more I did this and the more really good deals that I got, I realized another very important thing. You are what you negotiate. And many people say that and it sounds cliche and interesting, but the reason why you are what you negotiate is because in life, things don't have a very clear value. If we go back to Egypt, for example, it's not actually clear what is the value of the pen. That pen could be worth a lot of money to some people and it could be worth almost no money to some people. So when you're negotiating with the other person, what you're actually doing is, in that process, you're assigning value to the pen. Some people pay a lot for it, some people don't pay a lot for it, and it's in that negotiation that you assign the value. But in life, say when you're in a professional relationship and you're trying to negotiate your salary, or you're in a personal relationship and you're trying to negotiate how you're going to set up a household, it is not very apparent and very evident what the value of what thing is and what one person should get and the other person shouldn't get, right? So by default, you are exactly what you negotiate. There's very few instances in life in which things have a very clear assignable value and there's no room to budge. So for me, as a default, I treat everything as negotiable and I always try to get the best deal that I can in both personal and professional relationships, and that has improved my life in amazing ways. Because now, whenever I get a deal that I think is crappy or something, instead of being really resentful and complaining about it like the guy in Egypt, I just negotiate my way through, and usually, by just the act of questioning the status quo and negotiating a little bit, I end up in a much better place than I was when we first started the negotiation. I avoid resentment, I avoid complaining, and get a much better result that is much closer to what I wanted in the first place. Now, being good at negotiation requires certain skills, and it's not that simple. So we will spend a lot of time in this channel talking about frameworks for how to understand people better, their motivations, their incentives, and how to negotiate with them. But it all starts with a mindset of realizing that everything, absolutely everything in life is negotiable, and you should absolutely go and negotiate everything because you are what you negotiate, since things don't have clear value almost all the time. Alright, so we talked about negotiating when you're relating to another person and you're both trying to get to a deal. But we can even abstract this further. Absolutely everything in life is changeable, except for the laws of physics. You know, again, we fall prey to the illusion that like nothing is changeable because we have laws and we have certain ways of doing things. But laws change and political systems change. Everything in life can be changed if you put your mind to it. And doing that is very important if you want to change your life and innovate. Adam Grant is one of the most famous business scholars, and he wrote a book called Originals in which he explains why certain people have a lot of entrepreneurial success and what like innovators do to change the world. And in that book, he cites a very interesting study that some business researchers carried out. So more or less the way this study worked is that the researchers followed employees that just joined a company very closely. And in the laptops that they gave them when they were onboarding, as a default, they put Internet Explorer as the internet browser. And all of us know that Internet Explorer is one of the worst internet browsers you can think of. It has a lot of ads, it doesn't get the best search results, it's just clunky and it's difficult to use. So researchers wanted to see how new employees reacted to that and how that correlated to their performance at work in the future. And what they saw is that a high percentage of people, they just took it as a status quo. They said, look, I got the computer, Internet Explorer wasn't it, I hate Internet Explorer, but I'm just going to roll with it. And then there was another group of people, which is a smaller percentage, that actually took the time and said, look, I do not like Internet Explorer, I prefer a browser like Chrome or Firefox, and they switched their browser to another browser that they preferred much more. Now, all of this is pretty trivial, and you might be wondering like, dude, why are we talking about browsers? But the results were really outstanding. The group of people that didn't change their browser did not have that many great results at work when they were tracked afterwards. But the small group of people that actually changed their browser had amazing results. And actually, whether they changed the default browser or not was one of the best predictors for success in their work. Now, let's analyze this for a bit. I don't think it's the case that these people did better in their work because they're smarter or anything. I think they're smarter because of one trait. They realized that they could change their situation. What do I mean by this? They realized they were not stuck with a browser that was like pre-installed on their computer. In their minds, they weren't stuck with what they were given. They realized that if they put their mind to it and invested 5 minutes, they could actually change to a tool that was much more helpful for them in their day-to-day work. And there's this mindset that is very important. So as we talked about before, that people that realize that everything is negotiable, they can usually get a better price and they can get what they want more simply. People that realize that their environment and their tools and their workplace situation can be changed, they're going to be much more efficient at bringing about the results that they want to achieve. Just because in their mindset, if something doesn't agree with them or if something doesn't align with their goals, they realize that they can change it. And this has changed my life both in small ways and really big ways. So for example, at work, when I started, I had like a very, very bad chair and it made my back hurt like almost 2 hours after I sat down to work. And that was annoying. So I lobbied to get a new chair, and then when I had a much more comfortable chair, I could work for much longer hours and be inspired and not have to take frequent breaks just because my back was hurting. Look, I negotiated to get a chair that was like much more expensive, but the outcome was way better than sticking to like a really bad chair that made me completely demotivated and made my back hurt all the time and distracted me from the task that I was doing. And for very major things in my personal and professional life, it has also been immensely helpful. So at work, if someone is not performing as expected or things are not going well, I always try to think about what can we change, what can we do better, and always assume that everything is changeable, right? And then in my personal life, I had a really crappy living situation in the past, but instead of resigning myself and saying, oh, like my apartment sucks and it's super noisy and it smells bad and like there's nothing I can do about it, I worked really diligently to change it and ended up with an ecosystem that when I wake up, I really love and I'm inspired to be around. So realize that everything in the world, except for the laws of physics, are changeable, and realize that if you adopt this mindset as a default, you're going to get really, really good results because small obstacles are not going to get in your way. Because that's exactly what happens when we fail to negotiate and we fail to change the things that we want to change. We get stuck in a mindset that we cannot negotiate to get a better deal or that we can't change certain things. So if we have our goal of reaching this milestone, what we do is, as soon as we encounter an obstacle, we say, okay, we're not going to negotiate or address it, we're just going to go around it. And then when we encounter the next one, we say the same thing. We're going to go around it, and then go around it, and then go around it, and we end up in a situation in which just by avoiding the things that can be changed and can be negotiated, we've wandered off course and are really far away from the place that we want to go. And you do not want to do that. So to recap, realize that everything in life is negotiable and adopt that as a default mindset. Nothing in life has a very clear, tangible value, so you are what you negotiate for. And secondly, realize that everything in life is changeable and adopt that as a default mindset. Because if you do that, you're going to be much better at shaping your environment and changing your situations so that small obstacles don't prevent you from getting what you want and achieving your goals. Alright, if you find this video helpful and would like to learn about more frameworks that allow you to transform your life in meaningful ways, the Life Frameworks Tribe and I would be honored if you considered subscribing and leaving your thoughts below about what you think about this framework so that all of us can grow and improve together. And if you found this video helpful and think that other people that you care about could benefit from watching it, feel free to fire the link and share it on social media so they can have access to it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm super excited to see you on the next video. And remember, everything is negotiable, everything is changeable. Make that your default mindset and you'll see great results.